Waka, waka, waka. Ay, ay, ay. Boop, boop. Ay. It's Saturday, betting on Saturday, change the tiles. What the Sigma? That's better late than ever. Close, close, close. Memorable day on the punt when he won in 02. Ooh, media puzzle. What? 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 HD, g'day. Close, 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 close. Oh. We'll kick off talk. Is there a review? Is there a link? Kick for YouTube. I don't know what the link is. I want to find it. Cryo freeze. What are you talking about? First time we get to, I think the track was just super fair at Randwick at least. I think Flemington was pretty good too. Obviously the weather was a bit crazy there. Track was in the 4-ish range, a little bit slower from the chute, which it's been the last couple of times, so pretty much spot on. A few crazy tempos, a few weird things. Yeah, Kings had a big day on Twitter. I don't think the inside was off. Maybe sort of 3 or 4 off the inside was ideal spot. I don't think it was diabolical. Like Airman's won up the fence. Belmer C's led on the fence and won. The 2-year-old King Kirk's been beaten on the line in that race. What was it, North England? I don't think the fence was cast, that's for sure. A lot of runners were sort of fence-ish in run. Ostraka was fence-ish in run. I think it was pretty good. Yeah, dry track's perfect. Lead in dry tracks. Can Legend do the double off the back of Saturday? Yeah, for sure. I think that race will be a bit like the Elias race was on Saturday going forward. It was to my eye, and I haven't looked at the race in Melbourne yet, but that Metrop was one of the stronger Metrops I've seen in a long time. Fast run race, superior stays. Banned off Twitter. I'll talk about Just Party. I don't think that was a super strong race. I think the last will be a strong race going forward. But sort of get into it. The first race, very fast run race, but exceptionally solid sections. This is why, like this, after this race and the first couple of races, it looked like we were dealing with a fast track. As it turns out, it was just a crazy fast time in the first. There's not a lot of 1,800 metre benchmark 72s, I wouldn't imagine. So maybe that makes it a little bit weird, but there was still, you know, some strong sections and whatever. But yeah, the winner's gone like a rocket. Jeter bled. What else was there in the race? I don't think there's too many other exciting things coming out of it, sort of looking at the race. Flying Bandit looks ready to go now. But does have that horrible racing pattern.
Ready now.
Certainly, yeah, going into the meeting, pretty fair, I thought. Port Lockroy. Let's never mention Port Lockroy again. I think Port Lockroy is nearly the run of the day. I know everyone's sort of getting carried away about Browser in the run, but yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't a good run, but
and they're followed then by Kingston Charmer, the black cap,
certainly
the Rouse McGee, next from Ajita.
Talk about
Further
it.
back to Humanity. This
That
is the
volume,
moment
right?
deeper out. Midfield Extreme Freedom, a length after depth.
So yeah, I think Mitch Beer's horse gets caught a bit wide. McGeehan gets caught a bit wide. As I said, they're going quick. So yeah, good merit to the horses up on speed here.
So there's probably about 14 lengths covering
What's
the
this
field.
horse called? Is it called? This is the moment. It's the one that probably does the most work in the run, arguably, with McGeehan sort of sitting up there. The rest of them, most of them had cover. Ajita bleeds. The winner's sort of in the back half of the field. Flying Bandit's on its back. So no disadvantage to be back in the field here. But it's like they've gone out sort of 7 above to the 800, or 6 above, 7 above to 6, and then come home quick too. So yeah, really good merit in the race, especially for a midway. I think most runners basically had their chance. Humanity in isolation was a pretty poor run. But being only second up and considering how quick they've gone here throughout, I think it's only fair to give Humanity here another chance off the back of this one. Second up 1800 off a long break, and as I said, sort of a sustained strong gallop the whole way. Very hard to do that without a fitness pace. So whilst to me it looked like a bit of a horse that's looking for another lap, maybe, you know, it was just flat out the whole way and peaked because it didn't give up. Just Flying Bandit down the outside. It's just gone like a rocket. State of America always promised to do things like this in the past. It did look like a really promising horse at one stage. It has won a few races, but sort of can mix its form for sure. It did look unlucky last start back towards the inside, but the stable's so hard to catch, it's so hard to trust, you know. But it all makes sense, but a very good effort. Extreme Freedom, very good again, up on speed, battled on for second. Ajita, as I said, sort of bled. Cirebon okay. Humanity's the horse that I'm going to be forgiving of. I think we'll get odds next time to be able to be forgiving. If it was a flashing light run and it was going to be heavily backed again, obviously I probably wouldn't. But I just think because of how high a quality race it looks for this grade, it'll probably go into a similar race that it's worth giving another chance to. Just sort of Flying Bandit, the difference between these two horses is how quickly State of America sort of goes from a challenging position here to putting the race away, whereas Flying Bandit, you can see, sort of already off the bit of touch, trying to build through its rev. So they're very different horses. One's got a sharp sprint. I think it's got a bit more quality. The other one's maybe looking for further. So sort of 2,000 metres, similar grade next time out. But it just gives away such a big start. He can probably settle a little bit closer. So look for that if it can find a race where it can settle a little bit closer and get into the race, you know, a little bit earlier. It's going to be dangerous, but it's one of those sort of horses that took forever to get past the two in front of it there, and you know, I think it's going to be well found in the market. Did you enter systems giveaway? I did. Did I win? Did I win something? What did I win? Can't tell. I won. What a legend. Should I say thank you? I should. Because that's the only thing to do. What about how crazy that guy, so anyone, these sorts of streamers, they're dead set lunatics. And
haven't. I thought I had, but it appears though I haven't.
He's won like 12 million in the last week. He's won like 12 million playing Plinko. I've never seen anything like it. And punters will know, you know, everyone can have a good run, but you've got to be literally insane to go on some runs that some people have. And this guy is just insane, dropping $10,000 Pinko balls. Well, if it's fake, he's just sent me $1,600, so I'm happy for him to be fake. Back to the races, back to the thing. Oh, that's a good way to finish the day. Fake. Hang on. Yeah, I think so. That race I think will be good for midways. Breeders' Plate 2-year-old. Here we go. Not much between the Colts and fillies. The Colts looked visually probably better. The fillies softer, sort of a little anchor drop between the 8 and the 6. Only a small one, which is probably the difference in the times. Rothstein's brother. Here we go. So, yeah, I think Gates horses went out with a good plan here, and that was probably what the difference was in the end. North England was the one that was going to go out and put the speed on, try and hold the front. And King Kirk takes a sit. Tempestuous takes a sit as well. Physically looking at them, he's a little runner, North England. Tempestuous probably needs time. Next sort of prep horse, King Kirk was well ridden. Bit of a forgive to Raging Force, who gets caught wide.
Racing. Pretty good line.
A little bit of a forgive to Hidden Motive too. That sort of just, I don't know. I think when riders aren't riding confidently, the horses don't travel as well for them. And maybe, you know, like Zach Lloyd to me is a hard rider to catch in certain ways, but what he does do is ride with a huge amount of confidence all the time. So horses do travel and run for him, sometimes quickly into dead ends and up bums, and he looks dangerous and what have you. But he's obviously got a long way to go. But they do travel for him, whereas Dylan's just look at him. He just look a bit cautious. He nearly killed. Looked like he sort of half checked number 11 there, and the horses just really aren't doing a lot for him. And I think in 2-year-olds it's even more so. But I thought it was a good ride from Rachel to duck in, and everything kind of unfolded well for King Kirk. The tempo's not over quick, but certainly sort of consistently solid. You know, slightly above average nearly the whole way. Just that. North England, I think, was arguably the best run in the race. Showed the most speed up on fastest tempo. Tempestuous had the right run behind, and King Kirk lets down with a solid effort sort of down the outside. So probably between the two of these for best run, Tempestuous I thought was entitled to be a little bit stronger across the line considering the run it had compared to the other two. I don't think physically it's as impressive a horse at this stage as the other two as 2-year-olds. I think they're both probably a little bit more professional bomb-proof types. Raging Force sitting wide, no cover the whole way, and Valedictorian copped that short back and side. So is the slipper winner there? I'd be in shock if it was, but certainly not a bad race, just little professionals that sort of all pretty much had their chance and ran okay. Give him some carrots, Platinum Jubilee. What a man, Kappa. What a man. Yeah, there's nothing stood out the trials for mine, and it basically carried across. But the times are okay and whatever, and you know that's pretty much all 2-year-olds are, isn't it? They all run little whippets that run time, but there's no sort of physical standout. There's no horse that's shown that they're sort of bomb-proof. This little filly is good here, but again, not really sure. Quit my job going full-time racing investigation journalist tomorrow. Isn't that what that bloke from up here does? What's his name? Peter Prophet? Or is he slowed down? This race again, so a little bit above average, slow down between the 8 and the 6. That's probably the difference between the Colts and the fillies. I didn't see Belle Merci leading this race. If I did, I would have been emptying out. I was keen on Chupacabra before the race. Thought she was a forgive here. Memo was a pretty good effort from the back. Bellazine was a bit of a forgive, caught wide, and Autumn Blonde was another one caught wide. Just logically, I know there's a lot of runners in this race, but I find it hard to put apprentices on these 2-year-olds early. I find it strange when they find apprentices to ride these early 2-year-olds. Just, you know, think that sort of more senior hands are required a lot of the time. So fairly forgiving of 2-year-olds that have apprentices early as well. This is Bellazine sort of gets caught really wide. This is Memo, so it ends up out the back. So obviously optical illusion there, but it jumps well and ends up well out of its ground. Belle Merci towards the inside. Chupacabra, I think the Aquas, sort of that Kia Aura Aquas, is it? Or Kia Aura and someone else's blend colours. Ikasaris sort of colours in behind here. Actually does end up getting a nice run. So this is Memo sort of getting dragged out. Bellazine caught wide, shows good speed.
Fairy steps trying to get under its back.
But when it sort of Belle Merci let up, you can see how sort of compact she is, this Belle Merci. But she trialled really well, I thought. And yeah, obviously once she led, going to be very hard to beat. Got that little breather mid-race as well, which is awesome.
Then came Fairy Steps, Alabama Charm under the pump from Bellazine. Tupacara's all strung up. Got a check there from Scrumptious.
Yeah, so this is Tupaccara back just in behind here. It's probably the one that gets the interference. So very hard, I think, for number one fillies to be put through gaps like this, having their first start race, 2-year-olds, and then also to cop interference and shirk that off and come again. I think they're two great signs. This is Autumn Blonde down the outside. This is Bellazine, so it's sat wide and battles on, and this is Memo down the outside.
Inside the
so Olay was a pretty good effort, up out outside the speed, showed good speed, and
then came Bellazine, but
sticks on quite well.
Into another gear now, really starting to open up. Memo's making good headway on the outside, but Belle Merci, that's a class performance. Belle Merci won it comfortably.
Yeah, I think the horse with the most upside to me here is Tupaccara, apart from the winner. She's just a bomb-proof little sort of 2-year-old. They want to make the most of her while she's maybe they'll catch up to her physically, is what I'm trying to say. This is the horse, like a rider change for sure, and Tupaccara can certainly improve. This is probably number one of Tom Sherry's 3 strikes for the day, but
that's a class performance. Belle Merci,
yeah, I thought her effort was pretty good, and there were a few there that could go all right. He surprised 90 to cross. I was, especially considering who was riding it. Sort of, Rachel does like to be fairly assertive early, so I was surprised that she didn't elect to cross. As I said, it's hard. If you get out the stewards footage, you're probably more chance. But I did think the chance was there to definitely cross at this point. And she's sort of cruising, even though maybe that's not how it appears. A little bit more vigor. I think she definitely could have crossed, and it's not like her to grab hold. But yeah, I don't think it would have changed the outcome, but may have made it more difficult for the winner. Thoughts on Tuscany? Which one's Tuscany? Was it in the previous race? I didn't like the look of Tuscany. That's the one that was favourite. I just didn't like the look of Parade. I just didn't think its front matched up to its back. I thought that it's probably got significant growing to do. Of Gay's horses, I thought it was clearly the least likely winner of the race, Parading. Easy to say now, but that's how it looked. I think that was a big J-Mac tax on that. I think that was a big... Gay's got 4 in the race. James probably had his choice of the 4, and yeah, whether that was the case or not, I'm not sure, but it didn't look that way. Sorry, missed that. So yeah, Gimcrack, I think that form will hold up okay for especially in the fillies grade, and there's a few that you could forgive. Autumn Blonde, Bellazine definitely. Memo can certainly settle closer and finish off a race, which is great to see. I think Memo's probably a big forgive, and Tupaccara had a decent enough run, so you've got to be a little bit careful there, but I just like a few things that it did. Trialled well, and then sort of got balked for a run and took the gap back up the inside, sort of built through its revs, even looked a bit sheepish late. I think it had more to give than what it showed. It was just sort of the run it had and things that went wrong. Leave Big Tone alone. He has as much as integrity as a steward. Gollum. All right, the Dulcify. This was a bit of a weird race. Change of tactics, depth of character be ridden more forward. Ends up they sort of go about 4 lengths above standard to the 800. Slow down a little bit between the 8 and the 6, then slow down again. The race overall is pretty steady. It's okay. It's probably bang on average, but off a fast tempo, so just maybe a little bit below. The winner goes well. Second up, so both its runs have been good. This time in, maybe a little bit flattered by definitely overdoing the tempo. The character certainly took the change of tactics very literally, and a horse that's sort of been out the back off slowish to even tempos previously is now setting fast speeds out in front. Certainly not a recipe for success. Johnny the Kid was definitely disappointing, which takes away a little bit from the race. Just Party got held up a touch through the middle. So yeah, overall, I think the race is just okay, maybe a little bit below. The winner's definitely on the rise, definitely has huge upside. Things went its way, but it was very dominant. Just not in love with the race in general, and think a few things went its way. Disappointed in this horse, Last Command. It's nearly a horse, you know, in previous years that, you know, you're probably not going to be able to buy it. Its form's a little bit too strong for that. But and its first up win this time was incredible. But something's gone wrong between now and then. Showing no speed, really. You can see sort of shoved along to hold contact with the pack, which is not a great sign, I don't think. This horse went quite well, is it? I was just trying to see. No, it's Pleasure Artist. A little bit flattered by the way things went, but a good effort considering it's only sort of 3 runs into its career. So, yeah, depth of character sort of rolling forward. You're like, oh, that's interesting. But then even rolling forward to take the front. Now, I think this is Tom Sherry's strike 2 for the day. Really poorly judged ride to put that much pressure into the race early on a horse that's just not used to it. Just taking the horse completely out of its comfort zone. Jumping in distance second up too, I believe, quite significant. So, yeah, I think it was a really poor ride. Horse can be given it was also pulled up with cardiac arrhythmia. So everything that could go wrong for it did. China Sea was ridden upside down a bit. Media World gets its chance. Interjection gets its chance. Just Party we'll talk about gets held up. Winners here, Swift Falcon, probably in the sweet spot considering the tempo. And Last Command's a little bit
Just Party, a gap back to Swift Falcon, Johnny the Swift the corner, and Death of Character.
Not much changes here. Swift Falcon gets to drag up, absolutely ideal. Just Party's the one that gets held up through the middle. That's about the whole race. Pleasure Artist forced to switch around the heels of Swift Falcon, finishes off okay. Gets past everyone very late, but it's hard to knock the horse. Just Party through the middle there. Poor Josh is just really struggling to, whether it's a bit of luck, he's on the wrong foot, not riding at his best, maybe a bunch of things at the moment, but his comments were pretty funny after the Epsom, where he said he just slaughtered Radina, where he kind of did, but you know, probably wasn't all his fault, but he's certainly on the wrong foot at the moment, JP.
From Media World, down the outside is Pleasure Artist, but Swift Falcon is home and hose, beating...
I think he goes to a gloaming, sort of spring champion path, if he goes through the gloaming or not. I think he's on the spring champion path. It's hard to knock him, pricks his ears, does everything, you know, ride, big strong bugger that looks to have plenty of physical upside and sense of timing. You know, there's no reason to doubt that he can go on to better things than this, but just wary that this race was certainly put on for him. A few problems with other horses in the market. Just Party probably should have finished closer, a bunch behind. The rest, you know, cardiac arrhythmia. He's basically beaten nothing and had tempo to suit. So it's not as if it's a super performance that the margin doesn't do him credit. I think the margin's flattering, if anything. Yeah, Josh is not. Yeah, he's not. He's just lost his mojo a bit. I agree. He can turn it around, but he's lost his mojo a bit. Well, yeah, whether it is or not, I'm not sure. But it was a good effort, add tempo to suit it. It's only had 3 starts. Very strange that it's had sort of 3 scratchings and then 5 scratchings between runs. There was an abandon there, so 4 scratchings. There's sort of 5 weeks between runs coming into that. It's hard to be highly critical of the horse. It's been in slow tempo, then overcame position in run at Kembla. Logano's come out and won out of that race. It's hard to be overly critical of the horse, but it's just a bit of a weird one. The race itself's a bit of weird. Yeah, most of the Sydney jockeys are a little bit under the pump, I would say. We'll get to that. What's this race? Has it got any name? Probably worth $1 billion or something, is it? The Alinta Energy Handicap. What was it worth? 160. I'm surprised they got any runners. This race to me is a bit smelly. Nothing wrong with the time. Nothing wrong with much. There's a little bit above average tempo. Times slightly above average overall. No real weakness in the last section. It's a little bit soft, but nothing crazy. The winner's okay. It's just, I think it's one of these races where the horses take turns to a certain degree. Chica Mojito was probably a little bit plain if you thought it was going to be a progressive horse off a pretty good effort first up and getting in this race with no weight. What did I say? Sort of Riazan was a little bit keen in the run, overriding every chance. Duke Cass gets caught wide, dragged out. Point of Dragons works hard in the run. For the most part, most runners had their chance, and Little Mix was very good late. It was probably the highlight, most interesting runner to follow coming out of it, I would say. But St Lawrence comes from back in the field, so no real excuses for anything. Pretty boring race, won't spend too much time on it, to be honest. But yeah, well ridden, comes through the pack. Sir Lawrence, Tommy Berry, Chikamahito certainly looked the winner when it exposed. Riazan's a 10-year-old that's racing well, but was quite keen in the run, and then, you know, only beaten a length, 3/4 of a length. So what is this race? Don't think it's a super strong race. Ducasse is a horse. It's a bit of a nightmare, but is due for a barrier and a change of luck, and is up to a race like this. Little Mix is probably going to peak over further. Overriding's probably a little bit disappointing since a good first up run. Who else is there? Cafe Millennium certainly had its chance. It's a bit of a tricky horse too. They're all tricky horse, take-turn sort of horses now. Maybe Little Mix over distance is not. You don't want to completely sack Chikamahito off that run. I think it was only second up, wasn't it? Yeah, only second up. So maybe it was a little bit flat there. But it's never really done anything. All of these races it's run okay in. And, it's run well on a heavy track first up, off a slow tempo, then never really done a lot when races have been suited, when races have been run well for it. Ran well first up behind its stablemate, who's actually airborne. So maybe it's a little bit harsh. But it's, yeah, I think it sort of had its chance here. You've got to draw a long bow to be super forgiving. Nothing else that race. St Lawrence Williams makes me sick. Yeah, it's not much of a horse, I don't think. Flight Stakes. Lady Shenandoah. So soft tempo. They slow right down from the 6 to the 8 to the 6. Rip home. Pretty much every runners have their chance. Maybe Lazura missed a kick. No, Snow in May's back with it, but very weak. The winner's just super dominant. Second up off a weird prep. They put J on it. They sort of threw me off the scent a little bit that there must have been issues with this horse. Resuming in the race that it did with the rider, it did. Overcoming the slow tempo. The race was a bit smelly. But in saying that, obviously Mayfair's made that form look okay. Just Party's come out and ran okay. Media World's come out and ran pretty well. So China Sea's coming around okay. So the form's okay. But I didn't see this horse doing this, to be honest. So yeah, she's got huge upside. All the runs last prep were really good too. There doesn't look any fluke to it. Physically, she looks, big, strong horse with heaps of improvement. So she's done this second up. Now, she's jumped well there and sort of been restrained back to the 1 out, 1 back position, which, was fine, but probably could have led. So it's a great string to have in a bow too, that she's got a bit of gate speed. Not that this was a fast run race, but she can at least hold a position, which is a huge attribute to have. You can see sort of the sweat down her neck or whatever. I think she had a bit of physical improvement to come, especially in comparison to, say, Snow in May. Thought the second horse was good through the line, which is Doyle's horse, Harlem Queen. And get some nice cover. She could probably run a bit further. The winner was out sprinted, probably went a little bit too slow maybe, but yeah, jury's out on it going up in distance towards her, maybe in Oaks. Maybe she just was completely out sprinted, just went way too slow, potentially. Yeah, I think I don't want to be negative towards Harlem Queen going up in distance. She definitely got sort of pocketed, held up, and then her best part of a race was the last 200 metres, which is what you want to see. And whilst I think this horse was ridden upside down and out sprinted Power of Opal, Powers of Opal, it's hard to say that Harlem Queen shouldn't beat it home again, especially up in distance. So, yeah, Snowy May lets down Lady Shenandoah, just way too strong a sprint. Just here, it just sort of gets held up Harlem Queen and balked for a run, and then has to sort of push through late and definitely a little bit superior to the other two. Too late. And just that last 50 metres was just a little bit shuffly from Opals of Power, which I don't love, going up in trip, whereas the other horse is still sort of building its revs for mine. And yeah, it's just, Oaks-wise, I would say this was the best trial. I don't know. Where are they aiming up, Lady Shenandoah? I've got no clue. Second up a mile. So they've got so many different options, right? It's it'll be interesting to see where this horse goes. I've got no clue. Should go Empire Rose, 1,000 guineas. That's probably the most logical path. I've not looked it up at all. Lady. Yeah, there's nothing. Nothing. No, I've just asked, but I'm not really sure. So if I get any update on that, I'll let you know. For anything back, but yeah, obviously a weird little flight stakes, but yeah, the winner looks high quality. The race itself a little bit below overall standard time, but good late sections off a slow tempo. So it's not as if they're going to rip home much faster than this over a mile, fillies. So yeah, I think the race is okay. There's not much better around. Wakeful, 1,000 guineas. Yeah. He could even go straight into it, I'm assuming. She's obviously a pretty clean-winded horse. All right, here we go. Now we get to the fun stuff. Didn't look light on. That's interesting.
And the light is on. We're ready now. For
probably everyone's sick of this race already. Won't talk about it too critically. Again,
think about it. Jumped or
you know, the funny part to me, the bitching session from Joe Pride. None of these horses had any tactical speed. Right? He doesn't put the blinkers on Coal Crusher. Marzu probably wants to sit. If you drew different barriers, it changes the dynamic of the race completely, right? It changes all the decisions, changes everything. But when you've got a horse that's desperate to qualify for an Everest, and whilst this horse, Coal Crusher, definitely runs along over a little bit further, sort of 1,400 metres, 1,200, I wouldn't say it's a fast horse. You know, if you had other horses in this race, they're a lot faster horses than Coal Crusher. So expecting it to set a strong tempo, unless you did something silly on it, I don't think was ideal. This is obviously not a target race for Coal Crusher. Marzu is really talented, sort of sitting outside the leader. So why would you not just give this horse one dig straight to the front and then control the tempo? I don't understand going out with the opposite plan. I thought, you know, and the thing with that plan, right, is, okay, these horses ping, he's not that brilliant to begin. Then you go to plan B, you take a sit. Surely plan A should have been, if this horse jumps on terms with them, it goes to the front and these two take a sit, and that puts all the others at a disadvantage. I can't believe that plan A was to grab hold and try and run along with the front two. But just my opinion.
Right, Coal Crusher and
yeah, was the run there for him now? He'll never know. And what he's saying, like, it's absolute garbage, the steward's report, in my opinion, because he comes out saying, if I had tried to get that spot, J-Mac would have kicked up. Well, by the time that gap opens, he's already looking over his shoulder and he's got a vice like, and he's dragging the horse out of the race. He's not even looking at J-Mac. He's looking at Bandy's boy and behind it. So he wouldn't have even known this gap even eventuated, because he's just being ultra negative at all costs. So the whole steward's report's really smelly for mine. You know, I think Joe Pride's one of the better trainers in Australia. I think he's very limited in his rider choices and sometimes does a few funny things with tactics. Again, you know, like, it's just an opinion. But, yeah, I just think he sort of got it wrong here. Giga Kick gets the right run. Big Airman's sort of just behind him. Right place at the right time. Johnny on the spot. They're going slow. They slow down even more. They're 5 lengths below to the 8, 7 lengths below to the 6, come home 5 above. So there's a bit of merit in the back end of the race, which they're entitled to be when you've got this sort of class sprinter. Giga Kick was very average, I thought. Bella and Patina just ended up, you know, that pair further back in the worst possible spot she could be. She couldn't build momentum. She had to try and run some astronomical time coming home. What does she run? She's run the 5th fastest last 6, 4. Oh, she's run the 4th fastest last 800 of the day. 5th fastest last 4, 5th fastest last 200 of the day. And gone down. Giga Kick's run home 7th fastest last 200 of the day, 20th fastest last 6, and 15th fastest 800. So he's hit a real flat spot. he might be looking for further than 1200, and he might not be his best. But yeah, think about it. It's just one of the worst rides I've ever seen in my life, all things considered. And yeah, I honestly think someone should have gotten a bit of trouble for it. I just don't think the horse was afforded its winning chance. Whether that was whose fault it is, the stewards is up to them make their mind. But I think punters, and I didn't back it, weren't afforded a winning chance given the ride and the way it was handled. She can still win the Everest. I don't think there's anything anyone would say she couldn't. Probably needs it a little bit wet and a few things to go away. She probably should have won it last year, arguably, and looks to be ready to peak. This bloke can peak, but how's he going to get a better run than that? And surely there's better horses and horses with more upside. Will he get a run? I'm not sure. Doubt Marzu gets a run. Yeah, well, I think Willow's ride was not great, but this was the problem with betting into this race, that she's already in the race, right? So as soon as the gates open and she's that half length slow, he's not going to kick her in the guts and put her into a speed duel. She's on the back foot. She's not going to get past Giga Kick without sort of pushing on. I'm assuming he's expecting Think About It to push on. He was always going to ride the negative race from there and, sort of pressure from the outside. He sort of gets pushed in behind. Yeah, it wasn't one of his best rides, but I think the sort of first 50 metres of the race dictated that the rest of the race, I don't think he really had an opportunity to go anywhere else. Trying to push Giga Kick out of the way was never going to be easy. Was she going well enough to take the inside run? I'm not really sure. She should have probably won. I think it's hard to argue anything different. But yeah. Think About It. What did it run? 11th fastest last 6.4 and 10th fastest last 200 of the day. Good enough effort, but you're entitled to run fast sections when you've done nothing in the run. Not finished enough. Should Mars have been the Everest off that run? Wet track lightly. Well, would you take Marzu over Giga Kick? Wet track? Would you take Marzu over Giga Kick? It's probably a good question. I thought Bandy's Boy was quite good for a Cozzy. I think he might have from current price, even though half the field. Yeah, sprint races are really tricky, especially with slow run sprint races. And this is why, like weight for age sprint races, Cody and even Danny, what's his name? Danny Williams, very smart running their horses in these lead-up races because you very rarely get carved up. They very rarely run fast time, like fast up-front tempo time, and you're allowed to sprint home. And those soft sections, especially a horse like Bandy's Boy, who can definitely rip off a fast last 600, it is very flattering to these horses that race that style and finish on the heels of, horses like this. I think Bandy's Boy is a very good horse, don't get me wrong, and can definitely win the Kosciuszko, but just got to be a little bit careful in these little sit sprinters that they're not a little bit flattered, and Cody's done it well in the past, sort of qualifying horses that way. I was beaten a length by Think About It, who won the Everest last year, and we've been beaten half a length. I know it's already in the race, and that's not how it's fallen here, but it is a great recipe, and his effort's good, and I wouldn't want to swap him for anything in the race. I'm thinking, who was the horse from last week? Was it Lonrose Queen or something? Was the horse I thought might be in the race, and there was another horse that ran well. This form's got to be stronger than that. It has to start close to favourite. Obviously, the thing that is favourite, the fast thing, has got good form, but Bella is going to be fair. Willow's need to Think About It out of the race. He did, but he landed in that spot, Paul. That's the difference between Think About It and Bella's Nipotina. 2, 1, it's already in the race. 2, if Think About It jumped a lot cleaner and a lot better position to roll forward than Bella Nipotina did. There's no doubt that the concertina effect of them all being soft after the start made it look worse from Collett, but he had to work hard to restrain it. If he had just sat 3 wide outside him, the speed they went, that would have been fine by me if I had it. Zephyr Trips, thanks, mate. There's a little birdie, 2 for 2. Yeah, 2 for 2 was good with little birdie. It was a good day. The horse in the last that we're not to yet would have made it a huge day for me, but not to be. maybe Compelling Truth serves it up to front page early in the Cosy. I think it was interesting that they rode Compelling Truth a little bit off speed the other day, and it ran well. Yeah, it'll all be about barrier draws probably, but I'd expect him to run along in a Cosy. I understand that he was instructed to give Think About It cover, but you've also got to be. So if you put McDonald or Nash on that and they do the same thing, they don't come out looking over their shoulder after 50 metres to drag the horse 10 lengths off the speed if they're walking. You know, they probably jump, squeeze, have a look at the race. Okay, they're going too quick. I'm going to try and find a bum. They're not doing anything. I'm going to try and either slot in, which they probably arguably could have there, or just settle wherever the horse is comfortable in a rhythm. First up and all that, I don't know. It's been talked about a million percent. It's tricky. Not much really. Yeah, I think the sprinting ranks is pretty average. Would you consider Skybird for a slot? No. I don't think Skybird's got the strength quality class at this point. If Skybird was going to be winning a race like this, it would have won on Saturday. All right, Metrop. So, yeah, I think this race is going to be a really good feeder race. We sort of talked about it. Unusual Legacy's run's incredible. I thought it was dropping out and got killed and ends up fighting back and running third. Trusting You is a much improved run. But Zardozi and Land Legend were purely dominant over the rest. Coming out of that Elias race, which also produced Elias, and who else was in that lead-up run? CO Wolf, obviously. And Golden Path hasn't been sighted. So Serpentine leads up here, went too quick. Allegron comes out of that race, was just a complete forgive here. So that form's stacked up really strongly, and I think this will do similar going forward, to be honest. And the Metrop to me is never really a strong race, but I think this is a really strong addition. Fast tempo throughout. They go out sort of 7 above to the 8, 5 above to the 2, and then 2 above the last 600. So, you know, a strong 7 length above class time overall, which is
ready to go.
Very good. And I love that it was sustained speed and they didn't sort of drop off in the last section. Front page, yeah, it's getting on front page. Land Legend for the Cups, absolutely. I think Moreira is going to ride it. I believe they're going to go Caulfield Cup, Melbourne Cup. I think that Waller can see that the horse still needs the edge knocked off him. He's still very keen. So I can only see 3,200 suiting this horse better than 2,400. As long as he settles. And I think it's, you know, there's not many riders in the world you'd prefer to have it sitting on it, especially down in the weights than Moreira. So, yeah, I think Land Legend's going to run huge races. If it's in the Caulfield Cup, it is. But if in the Melbourne Cup especially, I think this horse can run really well. Reese didn't do a bad job here by any means. I was sort of hoping he'd put it to the fence and put it to sleep here. Ends up one off and in a pretty good spot with Zardozi outside him. And you can see he sort of never doesn't do himself any favours in the run. And that's probably why he tricked Tyler a bit. So in that race when he gapped him first start in Australia and they're back in the pack and they were going 100 miles an hour and he circled them. You know, not many horses, number one, are capable of doing that, but this guy just looks like he wants to run. Zardozi's effort's obviously huge here, sitting wide for the majority of the race without any cover. Trusting You, I think, is the one right behind it. It runs fourth. Going on with the job now is Serpentine, and Serpentine takes the lead away from Athabasca. So Serpentine's had to work to lead. Unusual Legacy, Zardozi wide, no cover the whole way. So its effort's just monstrous. It's very hard to discount her going to Caulfield Cups, Melbourne Cups too. I was concerned that she maybe wasn't at her best, but had been told that so Nash ends up 3 wide here, I believe, and gives it a bit of cover. I had been told she'd been set for Caulfield Cup, Melbourne Cup primarily, and that, you know, she was looking for those sort of trips, and they're spot on. You know, the Godolphin team seem to be getting a lot of things right at the moment. Tom Melbourne ran well in the Epsom with not a lot of luck. This filly's obviously, you know, improved significantly here, but maybe not. Maybe she just had those runs in her legs, the miles in her legs already leading up to the Elias race, and whereas I thought Land Legend had a lot more upside going into this race than Zardozi did. She certainly proved me wrong, but right race leading up, and very lucky to get the result. Obviously, protest. I thought it would be dismissed, but wouldn't have been surprised if it wasn't. So happy result here. So I was obviously happy for it to be dismissed, but wouldn't have been surprised either way. It's good that he sort of has. He doesn't have a turn of foot, but he's got gears. He doesn't take forever to wind up. You can sort of point him and shoot, and then I think he'll just keep grinding, which is what you want going up to sort of Melbourne Cup distances. That's what I like about Land Legend, and maybe Zardozi would have done similar if it had a bit softer run in transit. Yeah, sort of unusual legacy here gets squeezed up completely and looks like it's going nowhere. This is a Legron who gets chopped out pretty badly. And these two just sort of race away and have the race between them from there. I'm not really sure whose fault it was with the interference, and that's probably what helped Land Legend and having that vast amount of time for the second horse to sort of pick up and beat it on its merits. But here comes Unusual Legacy back at them.
Land Legend, Zardozi, nothing in this. Stride for stride, they hit the line.
Just a huge effort.
Dead set a swing of the heads there.
And I think kind of the separation for me is the class. So the top few, Land Legend, Zardozi, Unusual Legacy, to a certain degree. Maybe it's got potential class, probably the best way to put it. Trust in You as well, maybe. But this Etna Rossa, Strathray, First Light, Wycliffe, these to me are the horses that haven't got the class, but they were just very well set up. And they've run to their sort of peak to be beat 5, 6, 7 lengths. So I'd be surprised if any of those horses can turn the tables on the top 4 in the run, especially the top 2, maybe the top 3. I think a Legron can improve. I think it's going extra well. That's probably the extent of this race. I think the sort of more limited horses that were extremely well set up ran to their peaks and ran in those positions, sort of 5th, 6th, 7th. The top 2 going on to bigger and better things potentially, even though this is a Group 1. Unusual Legacy, is he a next prep horse? Does he have more in him this time? I'm not sure, but he certainly showed that he's got a bit of class, and in time he's up to this level, I would say, and the 4th horse has improved significantly coming out of that Elias race where it was really slow run, ugly race. Whose run was better? Oh, yeah, does it matter? You know what I mean? Does it matter who was the better run? This horse did a few things wrong. This horse had the harder run. You'd probably have to say Zardozi was the better run, but it's not automatically meaning to me that I want to be on it next up. I would rather back this horse in the Melbourne Cup, like Land Legend, and I'd probably rather back Zardozi in a Caulfield Cup. Last November, Zach was on California, decided to take off. Way more mature now. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that he was super patient on the horse, didn't panic, and that was a different kettle of fish. But being worried about a horse having to work in a 1,200 metre race around Randwick and sort of dragging it out to get cover and not panicking on a horse in a Metrop, like he's ridden a really calm, patient race. I agree with Paul, what he's saying there. Okay, Callum, how does Ford lose the slot and end up 3 wide, no cover? Yeah, I don't know what happened there with Unusual Legacy, and it ran very well. How funny was Waller in the protest? JC was saying Zardozi didn't deserve to be late, and Waller crunched his face and stuff. Well, I thought Waller handled it really well. What he said, he was much more confident than Reese was, and that may have saved the day, may not have saved the day, but everything he said was, really firm, positive. He sort of created the doubt of whether other horses helped shifting and that caused the interference. You've just got to sort of lay those seeds of doubt that are plausible so that they can't say without a shadow of a doubt the horse would have won the race. I thought he did that quite well. Good runs in the Metrop, never back up in the Caulfield Cup. I don't disagree with that it's very rarely a strong lead-up race, but I think these two horses are pretty good. Epsom Handicap, a bit lackluster overall, actually, time-wise. I actually thought they went a bit quicker, but they didn't. Pretty soft tempo from the 8 to the 8, so just below average, which is not normal for an Epsom. They normally go out a little bit quicker. Below standard to the 6, so they drop tempo from the 8 to the 6, which allows horses like CO Wolf to get into the race from the back without working too hard and then, you know, just even coming home. So below standard or below par for the grade overall time, off a softish tempo with a bit of an anchor drop. So whilst it was a softish tempo, the anchor drop is what helps the back markers get into a little bit, offsets the slow tempo overall. So I'd say most horses had their chance here tempo-wise, and the overall quality of the race is not super strong, which again allows CO Wolf, who's, you know, just probably a little bit better than these horses. It sort of misses the kick and ends up out the back. Tom Kitten ends up getting dragged out a little bit and then ends up in front of Chael Wolf, who sort of grabbed his tail. He found the right bum. Yeah, I think Chad Schofield said that, you know, it went a little bit pear-shaped, but he was just too good. And I think that's pretty much how it unfolded. Wasn't really Chad's fault. The pear-shaped part of it just didn't jump that clean, ended up in an awkward spot. And he, a bit like Zach, just sort of kept pretty calm and luckily found the bum of the right horse, and he was just way too strong for them. That 2,000 back to 1,600's a really solid setup. Usually off a fast tempo is when you want that setup. So, but it's unfolded pretty well. Like Tom Kitten getting caught wide and rushing forward here and finding his bum, anchor drop between this sort of point and the 600 metre mark, all played into Chael Wolf's hands a little bit. My Oberon being caught wide, it's run very well. Yeah, Tom Kitten's run was great. Who else? Arctic Glamour was, I thought, good. Over-raced a little bit early, giving a kick in the guts to hold a more forward position. I thought she was pretty good. Royal Patronage fights well on the line. Hard to sit outside the leader in an Epsom, even on a, you know, a controlled tempo. So I thought his effort was good. This horse's run was excellent, I thought, back in distance on the week back up. It's just absolutely flying Firestorm. I don't know where it'll end up or what race it'll end up. Democracy Manifest runs really well. I don't think this is the strongest Epsom in the history of the world. I think there will be winners come out of it, but I don't think it's super, super strong. So I'm not getting carried away with the winner as such. I think Elias was dominant over it last start, and it's dominant over these horses here to a certain degree. There are horses with excuses, sort of Tom Kitten, My Oberon, Firestorm. There are a few excuses here, so a few things have gone his way, and the race itself's not overly strong. So I'm not getting carried away with him yet, but he is flying, and out to 2,000 metres next start, he's nearly certain to run well again. Kovalik was a little bit unlucky back towards the inside, held up at one point. I'll just go back a little bit to show Firestorm. So this is Firestorm through the middle here. This is sort of like Democracy Manifest. Really talented horse and not an ideal setup. You can sort of see sort of rushing through a little bit unlucky and then held up. So yeah, I think it can drop back in grade, Firestorm, and run well coming through benchmark races the last couple of starts. Yeah, I'm not sure what to do with the form overall, but I think a lot of these horses will go into a lot of different directions, which will help anyone who watches the replays and listens to JP talking about his ride on Medina. It's pretty funny. I think he said he absolutely butchered it or something. That's pretty funny. Yeah, it's going to have to see where these horses go. If Arctic Glamour goes back to 1,400 mares grade, I think that would be ideal for it. Royal Patronage, again, around the mile 2,000 should suit. Kovalika the same. You'd assume Tom Kitten goes to something similar. There's a few options for horses like Chael Wolf and My Oberon, probably sticks around the mile, 2 rack, something like that. Yeah, bad check. Sorry, what do I got here? Saintly, Kovalika was unlucky. Yeah, it was unlucky and copped that run. The chopping in momentum is just so difficult to overcome in races like this. Molly Bloom, jury's out completely for me. I don't know what to do with Molly Bloom. I want to see it do more. I don't know what to do with it at all. Molly Bloom. I think this is potentially the highlight of the day from a horses to follow perspective. The last, very slow tempo. They go sort of 4 below, something like that, out to the 8, then slow down 6 below. So a very slow tempo to the 600 and come home really quick. strong last 8, 6 and 4s all through this race is what you expect in a 1200 metre race off the back of a slow tempo. I'm going to be super forgiving of stupid Port Lockroy again, run the fast last 200 of the day, second fast last 6 and 4, and I thought the ride was terrible. I think it should have won. Second, the winner's flying. Second horse had its chance. I think it's probably the one that's a little bit more limited than the others. Briassa's great off a wide run. Infancy was awesome, but did have that soft run that it likes and came through passages where it was allowed to sort of run these fast sections. So just be a little bit careful with it. Stadio Mastala, the last 200 was awesome. They're probably the main ones.
Epsom,
But I think there'll be a lot of winners come out of this race.
We're ready to go.
Hopefully they don't run into each other. So Briassa the grey towards the outside, Straka towards the inside. The best part about him, we saw what he did first up from back in the field off a not suitable tempo. The way the track was racing wasn't great, and he just rounded them up. This time he can take advantage of drawing a gate and holding a position. This is Port Lockroy, Moravia, 4 for Cindy Lands close. Stadio Mastala sort of drawn wide, Battleton. They're probably the main horses. Infancy drops back to the rear in the Australian Bloodstock colours.
Briassa's jumped quite well together with Inhibition.
I can't be too critical of Zach Lloyd here on Briassa. I think he's on Briassa, isn't he? Yeah, he just gets caught wide. He's probably a little bit passive, but he's desperately trying to find cover. And because they just go so slow, he's sort of caught in no man's land. And, he's still trying to find that cover. He's sort of getting dragged back. I think he's a little bit of a victim of circumstance here. And not really the horse you just thought would sort of land outside leader. And then at least he sort of just lets the horse be comfortable and slide at this point, doesn't continue to drag it back. And, for the sake of finding cover, sits on the back of horses when they're going so slow. So the effort's good. Is it as blown out of proportion a little bit by sort of sitting wide on such slow speed? I think. Is the horse right on the up and got untapped ability? Absolutely. But I just be careful going overboard off the back of a slow tempo, and I'm not super critical of the ride either. I thought he actually did pretty well, all things considered. So hang on, we'll go back. I'll blow up about Port Lockroy. I think I was screaming in the stream here, this guy's the worst rider in Sydney. I'll tell you why. They're obviously going slow. He's on the back of the right horse. He's on the back of his stablemate Straka. He should know that. He should know Moravia is another horse, which is a good horse to follow. He should be not concerned about Elson Boy. And, he can't see these horses out here. So, to me, he just wants to conserve as much energy as he can. And that's it. So, you can see he sort of gives the horse a dig here in a sec. So he gets a check in a second, then he gives the horse a dig to try and find a sort of hold a spot. I think that's his first check, which is not really his fault. This one's his fault when he digs the horse up. So he digs the horse up there, trying to go into a gap that doesn't exist. So rather than sort of conserving energy and being able to let go with one sprint, the horse has now run onto heels twice. One arguably not his fault, one I believe completely his fault. And the horse has still got the tenacity to sort of pick himself up late and charge to the line. Straka is obviously a very good horse with a great turn of foot and sort of cut margin off it. The second horse, Moravia's definitely had its chances. Briassa chiming in. I'll just go back again. Sort of Briassa chiming in off the wide run. Great thing. I'm not saying it was a bad run. Just be careful thinking it was the be-all and end-all. It's definitely, there's not much between its run and Port Lockroy. I just think Port Lockroy's got a little bit more upside substance and, a rider change and a few different things. It can be competitive in a good race, Port Lockroy. Don't think it wants the distance that they're trying to put into it. I think 1400 is probably fine for it. But yeah, sort of Infancy's a flashing light run. Very easy to find. And Stadio Mastala sort of forced back to the inside again. JP just not having a lot of luck and really launched late without much pressure. We nearly get run through here, which is great, but we do get run through. We get to see the horses going around the bend. My new pet hates not being able to see that. So it's awesome to be able to see that. I didn't even notice if we got to see it in the other races. Yeah, even though sort of bunch margins, I think the slow tempo is going to hide how strong a race this is. I really do think it's a super strong race. I think horses like a Mer can improve, Inhibitions can improve. Battleton's just been going really well without luck. He could sneak up to Brisbane and just lap them in the right race. Yeah, I think this race is going to give a lot of winners. Infancy can knock over a race, placed well, probably trying to avoid a few of these. Moravia is going to stay in the same sort of grade and can knock it over, and Briasa and Ostraka are flying. Get Close Streaker, I agree with the inhibitions. A few of them need conditions to suit, but they've all run really well. Even Elson's Boy, it's controlled the speed. I think they went too slow for it. So its effort's good running into I'm assuming it's in the Kosciuszko, isn't it? So yeah, I think that race is going to be a really strong feeder race. I don't know. Kanish trialled really well, and again, sort of wide, but soft tempo. I thought it was probably the worst run of the race, all things considered. But maybe he was just a little bit out sprinted, needed the run, got a few bit of interference there. Maybe it's forgiving also. Maybe. I've always had an opinion of Port Lockroy. Yes, it's paid off not that well so far, but hasn't done me much damage. And most of the races have been huge things against it. I was unlucky here because I took a couple of small trebles, but sort of, what was it, Land Legend, CO Wolf, Port Lockroy was my main result, which would have been great. And I had the treble as well, but I had the multi for a lot more than I had the treble. But yeah, it's just a silly price, 20 to 1 for a good horse, and just needed a bit of the rub of the green, right? Melbourne. Bar Cummings, I don't trust that race. I don't trust it much of this race. The First Settler race was okay. I think First Settler was the run of the race there. Have a look at the Turnbull. It's probably the one that's most interesting. Really fast tempo here, so we'll probably get a clash of Elias with Land Legends Dozy, and did I hear that
Carousel began well. Young ridden with aggression. Duke DeCesar's up there 3 wide with Guardagent. They were followed by Circle of Fire.
I think I heard today that Buckaroo's not going to the Caulfield Cup, that it's going to go to the Cox Plate next start. That's what I heard. I'm not sure if it's correct or not, but yeah, I would have thought the Caulfield Cup was looking ideal for it, but you know,
smart, and then towards the back with
up to the trainer.
In the Turnbull, length and 3/4, Young Verter, and then
yeah, it's the money came for Vicestina late, which gave you a bit of confidence if you were wanting to back it. For giving that last run, I didn't think the rain was much of an issue. I didn't think the track was that bad, was it? What did it come up? Come up a 5.5, something like a 6. So it wasn't super wet. Elias was great, I thought. They go out sort of 10 above to the 600, so it's working hard outside the leader here and stuck on quite well late. I thought its run had really good merit in it. Vicestina certainly had its chance. Buckaroo certainly had its chance to go past Vicestina. I think they were the clear runs. Warmonger down here is pretty average. I didn't think there were too many back in the pack that were super, but this race is definitely strong, so be very forgiving of any sort of Melbourne Cup types, even Caulfield Cup types in this race, because I think the race will end up pretty solid. Who we got there? Duke Successor back behind, sort of racing well. Young Werther. It'll definitely feed into the Caulfield Cup. This and the Metrop form will both be strong, I think. Francesco Primer for the Melbourne. I just saw that it ran behind just a tissue there. I actually was interested to see how it ran here. So it's back towards the inside, isn't it? So it was probably a little bit closer than what it's been recently, but punches away pretty well, doesn't it? So it's good to see that horse back in form. Placed a Carousel, jury's out a little bit. Unreal Run Via, agree, lifted off the canvas, just a good horse, isn't it? And showed sort of last start, I think, that it was looking for further as much as anything. Yeah, I got that feeling a little bit too. The Placed a Carousel was a bit average. What do you make of Traporti? Which one's Traporti? Where was Traporti in? Who is Traporti? What is Traporti? Tremonti? Traporti? Tremonti? Stakes. I thought the horse of
So Odessa, who's showing good
Friedman's was given a really average ride and set an impossible task. Controlled speed, not a great race overall. That's kind of what it looked like. It looked like this horse peaked on its run. I think Gay sort of just kicked on. It was just too fit, too strong. I don't think this form's super strong, to be honest. Good sign from a 2-year-old to kick back, but I don't know if it was kicking back. I think the others were peaking on their run and it was sustaining its gallop. I just think that it was a little bit too strong because of the training methods as much as anything. I'm not convinced that it was sort of racing away from, I think, the other two peaked personally. But yeah, I don't think that 2-year-old race was... Can we watch Chad on Poppin? No. Nico tipped that thing. I think he did. Yeah, I think when it was like $8.50 or something like that, Nico did. Yeah. All right, what are we looking at? The races this week. There's a million of them, isn't there? Yeah, I think if you followed the Little Birdie tips last week and lost, it wasn't Little Birdie's fault because I think everyone had a pretty good week last week. I think DK's horse won. I think Nico had a winner. I think both of Donnie's horses won, and I had a bit of luck as well. So I think if you've followed in there, access denied. What does that mean? What does access denied mean? Oh, they won't let you open up them in tabs now. Yeah, so the Might and Power, there was no one going to this race. I think Mr. Brightside and Coco Sun are the most likely two runners. I don't think Pride of Jenny's going here, is it? At one point, neither of them were going, and Coco Sun was probably the leading horse. I was trying to talk a few trainers into sending their horses here with not much luck. 23 noms Might and Power. Yeah, it seems, Daniel, that's the case. But that was a strong tempo, that race. Would Pride of Jenny have won that race? It's probably the question. Because she wouldn't have gone much faster than what they went there. So maybe that makes it, the setup helps by Sistina next time they go around. Chad's just, Chad's Chad. You just never know what you're going to get. Yeah, Might and Power, as you can see, I don't think there's any interest there. Turac's funny. Probably the talking point so far for the Turac is entering Pride of Jenny. Whether they accept Wither and Scratch and compress the weights, or whether they actually just don't accept and the weights go up, that'll be the probably talking point for the next couple of days. I don't know whether it's tomorrow or the next day that the fields come out, but yeah, that'll be pretty funny to see. Another Will just looks to have the race on toast to me. There's not too many more promising horses than it. Pretty adaptable. $2.20, whatever. I'm not too excited either way, but if you're sitting on a live ticket with a better price, you're in a good spot. There's no doubt about that. I think there's much more to add, is there? Deny knowledge to run a drum. Might and Power, that's interesting. Yeah, well, that's an interesting play. If you actually like something here, even, I don't know, if you like anything back of third pick for the place, and you know it's going there, that is actually probably the smartest option in the race. Like, obviously, if another Will's not going there, if Deny Knowledge is confirmed, it's going to get out in front and roll, and yeah, like it looks ready to rumble now. You're going to end up with a pretty small field here, so that's probably actually the smartest play available. Very interesting. Very smart. Caulfield Guineas, broadsiding $1.60. That's just ridiculous. Now, Angel Capital was excellent down there last start. I was not a believer after its Brisbane campaign. I sort of thought maybe that first up win was a flash in the pan on debut, even though it was really impressive visually. But it's 2 wins this time and have been really solid. Did have the right run at Moody Valley, and then last time kind of got knocked over. Step up in grade, absolutely. I don't think Private Life can turn the tables. I don't think Stormboy is going to be there. So, maybe it is going to get this race on a platter to a certain degree, but $1.60, wow, that's short. Yeah, even Mayfair's just so deep into its prep. Swift Falcon, this race is going to fall away, isn't it? A lot of these horses aren't going to be there, so he could end up a small field and pretty average. No, I think, is Carr still out? Oh, Mick D is another wheel ride. I thought they amended it so that she could ride it. Yeah, I don't know what to do with Evaporate either. I'm happy to look at the Caulfield Guineas field. There's nothing sort of down here that think's been missed that can improve, that you know is going to be there. So yeah, I'd be happy to wait and see that race. Love my content. Oh, that's good. I think you need to find Clothes Streaker personally. Why did More Territories not run in the Flight Stakes? I've got no idea. I'm nearly certain it runs a place. It probably doesn't beat Landed Shenandoah the way it went, but I can't believe it didn't run. I thought it must have had an issue, but to see it show up here, I'd be sort of half disappointed. Anode certainly was a bit weak second up, whether it was just a hangover or what. Snack Bar was good. Just Party, Just a Horse. Another race where nothing really stands out. I think this is another $1 million race, isn't it? And it might end up as 7 or 8 horse field of afterthought horses. I am a big fan of More Territories, but I'm not convinced it's airborne by the same token either. But it should peak and run well. Yeah, I think Callan's your man there. Tap Craig, Jesus Christ, isn't that terrible? They did get squared by Autumn Glow, but things happen, you know, like you've got to, I don't know, especially fillies, you know, like a placing in the Flight Stakes is worth so much to them. You would think that they'd chase that over the Tap Craig. So I'm a little bit concerned that White didn't go there. Yeah, sorry, you're out now. How do I get rid of you? No. Dunk. Bye-bye. Highly technical. Leave them together. And this is the other race that really weakened the Epsom, which is super weird. I think Gringotts would have started close to favourite in the Epsom. I'm amazed it didn't run there. Menable was a decent enough run in that the first up run, got out of its ground and finished off. NCAP had its chance certainly the other day, but ran well. I don't think there's much value there. Macarena, if it shows up, it's got too many options to sort of want to chime in too early unless you definitely know it's going there, I think. Here to Shock's just a super rock-solid horse, but again, no value there for mine. Earmuffs on, blah, blah. And then, you know, the usual suspects that have all got 5, 6, 7 races that they could run in. So, yeah, it's a bit annoying at the moment. There's just too many options. Unless you really see an angle or know a horse that's definitely going to a race, it's hard to commit pre-post, but it's good to sort of look over these races and know what's coming this week as well anyway. But you would imagine that that's the sort of price that Gringotts and NCAP will come up, and same with Amenable Here to Shock. I don't know if Macarena will be there, so I don't think there's much upside in chiming in there. What do we see? $450 into $358 into $450. Yeah, I think Gringotts in the Epsom would have run a huge. I'm dead set amazed it didn't run there. Roman Consul Gatsby's, Perspiration certainly beat it on its merits last start, but it was 20s versus even money. So now he's 5-2 versus 7-2. Switzerland was just okay. Spirit of Wealth, Coleman, Ikasara, wow. Frost is interesting. It could be Cactus. It won yesterday at Ballarat or somewhere, didn't it? Or Bendigo. I'll go sucked into MS Cube. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't see anything there that stands out as huge value. Have there been any betting shifts? Not really. 11 into 6, Spirit of Wealth. Coleman Soft. There's just too many options for these horses to really want to chime in. Gloaming is interesting. This will be... So, Henline, $2.50. El Costello, $5. Tambury Wells, $6. $2.50. Jeepers creepers, that short. I'm a huge El Costello fan, but $5 is definitely short enough. Duvana coming off a maiden win at Goulburn. Lugano coming off a maiden win at Kembla. Firm Agreement. It's just so weak, isn't it? Crystal Clear. And Swift Falcon backing up, whether it does or not. Tenbury Wells coming through 2 races where it's really well placed. I think El Costello and Henline are the 2 most interesting runners there, but I don't think there's any value. Keeneland went like a rocket to El Paso, right? Okay. Keeneland went like a rocket too. It looks a serious sort of derby horse for sure. Big opinion that Switzerland is not much of a horse. I definitely can't disagree with you there. I haven't seen it physically, but it definitely looked a horse that needed to mature, and I'm not sure if it did. Hill Stakes, Royal Patronage, and short enough. Golden Path, well found. It's the horse I'd probably want to find in this race, to be honest. Golden Path, I think it'll run really well, but well found, right? 6 into 5. I think you'll get $5 no matter where it draws or what happens. So I wouldn't be chiming in, but I think it's definitely the horse to beat here. Golden Path coming through that Elias race, just airborne, set for this race. Yeah, I think it's a better horse than Pericles, to be honest. I think Pericles is just a horse. How Kobe's been disappointed the trainer wants to hold him up all the time. Rosehill track record at 1200. It was a weird day that day, wasn't it? Was it like Passagiata or something like that went out and set a land speed record and it trailed it? It was a bit of a slipstreamy effort. I'm not a huge time. Things have to unfold for horses to run time. Very different if they're like Pride of Jenny and they're setting up the time and running it. But yeah, sprinters and things like, you've got so many like wind, track conditions, track records, things like that. A lot's got to go right for fast times to be run. Nivison and Alentia first up. Zugotcha off a setback, right? Coco Jambu, interesting. Kundalindi off Breaking My Heart in Melbourne. Roots, a little deep. Yeah, this is a take turns race. Definitely not chiming into anything there early off. Prices. That'll be an interesting race though, right? Alentia is a fresh specialist. The old Waller bounce back for Zugotcha potentially. If it was coming into this run off its first up run, it'd be shorter than 280. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. This wants to run. Yeah, I'm surprised he ran 1200 that fast. Nivison, what else we got? Scalacci. Geez, there's a lot of races on this week. These are the ones that I won't have much clue in. The Melbourne ones, what's going where. Flying Bellatrix Star. Callis a bit unlucky, the underestimation. You would imagine that Mornington Glory's form, everything about it, that race, that's just so smelly, that race at one last start, that it's going to be a great horse to potentially take on here if things don't look ideal for it. So I would be trying to find chinks in the Mornington Glory armour heading into this race 1,000%. That would be my starting point. Not saying it can't win the race, that's for sure, but I would be looking for holes in Mornington Glory coming out of that last start. Was it the Moira or whatever it won that looks pretty putrid. So these are the same horses that are in a few different races all around the grounds. Northwood Plume. Herbert Power. Ugh, I'm not even going to look at that field. Yeah, so that's about it. Anything else to talk about? I think Roots is, how do I put it nicely, found its level. It just doesn't hit the line like it used to, for what I can tell. It doesn't attack the line, it just sort of needs all favours, whereas before it used to look dangerous. It's definitely a horse that needs things to go its way now. Anyhow, yeah, so another great week's racing coming up, obviously. Heap of Group 1s, heap of Group races. Few sort of grand finals, which is good to see. But, yeah, we're sort of building building up. Everest is looking average. Who really cares? Melbourne Cup, Cox Plate, Caulfield Cup look like they're going to be more exciting to me. Can we get a Melbourne Cup preview? I always do Melbourne Cup preview. It takes me goddamn hours to do it, but I always do one. So I definitely will do one. Thanks, John Gay Broadside. By your name, I worked that one out. Thoughts, Traffic Warden, the Everest. Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the leading contenders. I don't like that it's a bleeder and sort of getting deeper into its prep, 14 back to 1200. It's going to profile really well. I think my favourite horse is the one to beat. I definitely think that Sunshine in Paris should be favourite. I think $11 is a big price. I think it was dominant first up and it wasn't wound up. Like it's the horse to beat clearly for mine. If the race was going to be run this Saturday and it was $11, I'd be betting each way till my nose bled. And there's not much going to change. It's adaptable. She can settle closer than most of these horses. She can come from the back. She can sustain a sprint. She's already shown that she's back and on track. If she doesn't line up, that's probably her biggest issue because she does have soundness issues compared to most horses, but I think they'll cuddle her to the race and she'll run really well. Steffi Magnetic is dangerous, but I didn't think she pulled up. I didn't think she trialled well, and I didn't think she pulled up well from the trial. I and Me obviously had the one nose nostril bleed after the trial the other day. It looked pretty average at the trials. I'd rather back Overpass than half these horses, and it's not in the race. Like I couldn't back I Wish I Win the way it's going. I think Bella Nipotina needs a few things to go its way. Yeah, like it's probably better than $8 Traffic Warden. I think the three main chances from what I can see at the moment that I would back probably all three is Traffic Warden, Jolie Star, and Sunshine in Paris. Yeah, Steffi, just that pulling up a bit scratchy after an ordinary trial is a bit of an issue. But yeah, probably in order, Sunshine in Paris, and then not much between Traffic Warden and Jolie Star. Good luck at Caulfield, Brian. Great place to go. Love the place. Hard to find a winner there, but any Goss, I think it just no Goss, just that it bled, and I heard that I don't know what the issue is with Steffi Magnetica, that it just didn't pull up 1,000,000% after the trial. A Little Deep's a very talented horse. I'd be taking it seriously wherever it goes. If you knew where it was going, I'd be interested in throwing in sort of early multis for sure. It's actually not. I'll probably end up starting to do that now. Is that say selected? So they locked it in. Traffic Warden, they must have announced that it's definitely going there. I believe that you long are going to go with Stormboy over Growing Empire, but that's not locked in either. Don't take that as gospel, but I believe that's the way they're leaning at the moment. Yeah, that was pretty sketchy, Paul. The whole racing fraternity seemed to know that that it had an issue, IME, and then to sort of wait 2 days. And I know there's an inquiry, so there's no real point talking about it, but doesn't look ideal. Yeah, so Traffic Warden, sorry, I might start mucking around trying to get some doubles alive into Sunshine in Paris, to be fair, if there's $11 plus around, and smaller with Traffic Warden. Jolie Star's probably what I'd do. Because I don't think anything can really change my mind with the others. Yeah, Giga Kick's still a chance. I just don't think that it's entitled to be the same price as Sunshine in Paris. I don't think it's going as good as it probably was 12 to 18 months ago, whatever it was, 2 years ago. All right, guys, thank you. Thanks for coming along. Hopefully some interest there. I only found it today. You seem to have two things: memory loss and not really sure what the other thing is. Serious issues. Yeah. Cheers, guys. Talk to you later in the week, no doubt. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching, Little Birdie. Thanks for consuming all of my content. Have a good night. What are you prepared to lose today? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.